Okay, sounds good.
Perfecto. Awesome. So as I said, today we are going over your filters. So whether they're these filters here where you can create and develop filters, but also utilizing these saved filters as well. So a lot of what it comes down to is a lot of being efficient in your system is being able to track your activities and ensuring that you're not letting any leads slip through the cracks. So most commonly, what I would see with many people, or if I ask them, they're going page by page, right? So they might be looking at stuff. They might sort this list to last activity and kind of go through the list this way as to who's active and so on. But nonetheless, you will always miss leads if that's essentially the way you're doing it because you're not really tracking anything. So that's where your save filters come into effect here. So bear in mind, there is some duplicates here, just ignore that. But you should have the 1, 2, 3, 4, and the check-ins in your system. If you don't, we can easily add those in. It's not a big, it's not problem or problematic to add those in. So okay. The first place you definitely want to start when you are jumping into your system is the number 1 new leads 0 calls logged. Okay, so what this does is it's essentially pulling up every lead in your dashboard that you've never logged a call on, meaning you either haven't called them or you haven't logged that call. The phone validity for these people, because it is a call list, we want it to be on unknown or valid, meaning we are not including leads that we've marked their phone number as being invalid in here. And then the pipeline is for not set, new lead, tried to contact, or not responsive, meaning we have not made contact with these leads yet. Okay. So right now there's 83 people in this list, and we essentially want to get this list down to 0, and it's about keeping it at 0 because every new lead that comes in, we're essentially calling them. So when we open up the first lead, you should see the lead navigation here. If you're not seeing the lead navigation, there should be a button that says load lead navigation, and then it's just a matter of going from lead to lead. So this lead here has a bad number, so I'm actually going to mark this as invalid and then move to the next lead. So you'll see there's 83 and it's going to go down to 82 because that person no longer matches the qualifier. Same with this one, just going to mark it as invalid. Move to the next lead. They don't have a valid number. Now we have the next lead. So this lead here, we would essentially call this individual. Now, everyone, has their own approach. Some people really like leaving voice messages. Some people choose not to leave voice messages. Everyone is different, right? So when it comes to your leads, and I'm just going to mute you, Janet, just because we have some others in the list right now as well. So when it comes to these leads, when you pull up the dialer, you have the lead's name and phone number, your Twilio number. Now, if you're not leaving a voice message on the first call, what is suggested is that you just call and you let it ring till it hits the voicemail, okay? If they don't answer, you're just hanging up, saving the call, moving to the next. Really, that call is to, obviously if they don't answer, is to just make sure that that number provided matches the name of the voicemail, right? So when you're calling, if it doesn't match the name of the voicemail, what I tend to do is just go like voicemail says Megan, for example, right? That way, when you're calling, the next time you could say, hi, Crystal. And if they say, no, sorry, you'd be like, oh, is this Megan, right? So that's one way that you're able to do that. Now, initiating your call, again, you're just making that call. I'm going to log it as if I didn't talk to this person, so no message left. And then it's just clicking to the next lead. So now you're going to notice that this list dropped to 80. Okay, so the goal is to get this down to 0 and keep it at 0. Now, for any of you that are in here and you have many leads in this list, what you're going to want to do is tackle about 20 to 30 of those a day, not taking on all of it. If you try to take on all of it, you might have time today, but in the following days, you may not have time for it. And your next filter that we're going to run through is going to take all the people that we haven't connected with and throw them in there. Okay, so 20 to 30 a day. until you've dropped this down to 0. And then it's checking this filter daily, making sure no one's in there, calling them, getting them off this list. Now, for anyone that might have several hundred leads sometimes in this list, there's different ways that you can do things. So you can add additional filter items as an example. So if you wanted to do and pull up all your leads based on when they were last active, right? So maybe start at the 30-day mark. So we're going to start at the 30-day mark of those people, then change it to 60 days and so on. So all you can do is all leads within the last number of days. You just type 30 and you can go apply. This will then add that filter to this configuration temporarily. If you wanted to save this as part of the configuration, you would just click update. Update is going to save this new configuration moving forward. But there's all different ways. Sometimes it could be based on the source of the lead, right? So you might have individuals that are coming from different sources into your system. So you may want to kind of segregate them so that every time you're calling, your script is essentially the same. You know which audience you're calling at that time. So you're saying the same thing. You don't have to think about, oh, this is a Facebook lead. Oh, this is a Google lead. Oh, this is a listing lead. All different things. You can create it based on source. So how you could do that is just using the source filter, and then you can choose the source of whatever it might be, right? So I don't even know if I have anyone in these sources, but we'll try. So there's 2 people. So these people have this source. So that's one way you can kind of create different segregated lists. If you want to save this as a secondary filter, which I've done for some individuals, is you're taking this and then at the end of it, just put something like, whatever this list is, right? So it could be Facebook buyers, right? At that end, and then just create your company filter or personal filter. And that will then show up at the top here. So you can see I have 0 calls and then Facebook. So it's kind of like a branch of this one right there. But so calling, essentially, what you're going to want to do is, again, call 20 to 30 of these leads a day and try to get it down to 0 and keep it there. Now, as you all may know, just because we're calling somebody does not mean that they're going to answer. So that brings you into your second call list, which is your number 2. And for those of you that have just joined, disregard the fact that these are duplicated. And if you don't, for any of you that are on here, if you don't see these filters in your system, we can easily add them for you. So just let us know. So this number 2, so what this is doing is basically taking all the leads that we have yet to connect with, and they're going to populate in this list every 2 days. Okay, so the number of calls on these individuals is equal to or greater than 1, meaning we have called them at least 1 time. We have the same rules with respect to their phone validity and pipeline. These are people we have not yet connected with, and we potentially have a good phone number. And then the lead was not contacted by phone, and it's all leads within the last 2 days, essentially, is what this is. So currently there's 12 leads in here. This list for you guys, you want to clear this out daily. This is where you get to power down your leads essentially into the system. So if I open up the first lead here, let's say we have it right here, so we can see there's QA test. So if I go ahead and I call this lead, what you want to do is let it ring for anywhere between 23 to 25 seconds. What that's going to be equivalent to on the receiving end is the lead's phone ringing 4 to 5 times. Okay? Most people who have an intention of answering their phone will do it within 4 to 5 rings. Otherwise, you've just been silenced and you are sitting there letting the phone ring and no one's going to answer it. So how that works, again, if these lists, you call your lead 23 to 25 seconds, it's going to default on this. You hang up, save the call, click on the next lead. Then you call this lead, you dial this lead. Same idea, 23 to 25 seconds, hang up, save the call if they don't answer, of course, and then move on to the next lead. If you do that and 3 of your leads don't answer within 23, 25 seconds, you've just accomplished that within a minute and a half. So it's just going to allow you to sweep through this call list and allows you to have more conversations in less amount of time. This isn't the only thing you guys do every day. It's just a fraction of what's on your plate. So you want to be able to get in and get out as efficiently as possible. So this list will compound. Okay, so that's where in the number one list where I said to call only 20, 30 a day, because everyone that, let's say you were making calls today, everyone that didn't answer is going to be in this list on, what day is it today? Thursday, Saturday. And then let's say on Saturday, you were also calling leads from this number one list. All of those leads, in addition to the ones you also tried again on Saturday, are going to be there on Monday. So it's just going to compound. So anyone that has existing leads, you will be a little bit higher of like call heavy the first couple of weeks, just because you're playing catch up. But ultimately, once you get caught up in here, you will essentially, these two filters will take you no more than 15 minutes of your time a day. Okay, because they're really only going to be leads that have registered, most likely within the last 2 weeks. So the consistency is also what's going to get your lead to answer, and especially if you're not leaving a voice message, they keep seeing that number popping up on their call display, and most will answer by the 6th to 8th call attempt out of sheer curiosity, just to figure out who it is that's trying to get a hold of them. Now, before I go on to the next filter, does anyone in here, I know it's just Janet and Sharon. Sharon, do you have any questions at all? Or Janet, do you have any questions at all?
Yeah, my question is, because I've never received any lead yet, so
okay.
Yeah, everything you're saying, because I don't have any lead yet, so I don't.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you might be, yeah, because you just, this thing here, Penny here, I don't know, you're running that. I'm trying to see when. Okay, so yeah, so they just got it. It looks like they just got your stuff back up and running again, based on the notes in the system.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. But yeah, so that will start working for you shortly. But the main thing is just going in here and logging your calls daily and moving them progressively along, right? Marking the numbers that are invalid. So like this one here is invalid. What I would do in a case like this, where you've got 2 invalid numbers, is move them to, okay, why is my computer being funny on me? Let me just refresh this. I have a feeling it's my internet connection. Children are home from school, streaming things now. 1 second here. You can see it's like just syncing. It's nothing to do with the system. Huh. Maybe my internet crashed. Okay, well, sorry guys about that. I think my internet just crashed for a second. So a lead where you would have the bad number, is you would move them into, so if we have invalid, you would move them into your archive. Okay, so that's essentially what you would do with those leads. They fall off the screen here, so you don't have to look at them. So again, number 1, you're going to call all the leads. Not all the leads, you're going to call 20 to 30 of those a day. And then you jump into your number 2. And that number 2, you are calling everyone off of this list. And once you catch up, those leads will only take you about 15 minutes of your time a day. Now, the next filter that we're going to look at is your made contact filter. Okay, so your made contact filter is basically pulling all the leads that you've made contact with, or move them further through the pipeline, but have yet to sell them anything. And they've been active in the last 30 days. And then these leads do not have a check-in tag on them, which we'll discuss in a moment. But ultimately, this list here is, again, the ones that you've made contact. So sometimes it might have just been an SMS response. Sometimes you may have had a conversation. But ultimately, we're trying to gain those timelines from our leads, right? So again, the the level of importance of information we should be grabbing from an individual, not necessarily the order that you're going to be grabbing it from the conversation, but the importance level is the when. So when do they plan on actioning all of their criteria? What do those plans look like? Then their why. So understanding why they're moving in their situation, what could be potentially holding them back from making the move. This, in connection to their timeline, is positioning you to be really great at customer service, to be able to offer solutions, nurture resources, and things like that. And then, of course, it's the what and the where. And that is essentially their criteria. The criteria is the easiest piece of the puzzle to be able to gather from a lead. It's also the least required in order to essentially convert them. Okay. So I often see call notes with your leads when I jump into system that has to do with everything and anything except a timeline. We need to get those timelines because it's also going to allow you to determine how often you should be following up with somebody as well. So in this list here, and that's what these check-in tags. So we're trying to get these people off of this list into a check-in filter. Okay. So you have your tags here. Again, some of these are going to be duplicated. It's a training site. We were doing some fiddling around with things. But you should have check-in tags at the top of yours. And again, if you don't see any check-in tags, you don't see any safe filters, just reach out to our support team. We can easily install them for you so you can easily use them. So you have your one-week check-ins. This is essentially people that are hot to trot, right? People that we need to be following up with weekly. You have your 2-week check-ins. These 2-week check-ins are typically still people that are fairly hot. So they're going to be anywhere usually around the 3 to 6 month mark. But again, use your best judgment. You will have your monthly check-ins. So your monthly check-ins are essentially people that are 6 to 12 months out. You have your quarterly check-ins, 6 to or 12 to 18 months, wherever that one is. And then you have your 6-month check-in, which is 18 plus months out. Now, you can definitely create an annual check-in as well if you feel like you need to create that. So again, every conversation, whether it's them giving you a timeline or you're asking them when would be the best to call them back or connect again, whatever your lead tells you as to when's the best time to connect again, always cut that in half. So if they're saying, call me in about 6 months, you're putting them on a quarterly check-in. Often the time that somebody tells us to follow up with them is the time that they actually wanted to be into their new house, right? So if we called at the 6-month mark, you hear all the stories where they've already moved or they're already in contract with somebody else because we waited and we did what they asked us to do, but it was actually they were anticipating moving a little sooner than that sometimes. So just putting the check-in tag on your lead, and then you just go down and then you just go done and it's going to apply it. Now, because I just added that check-in tag on my lead, that lead fell off of this call list because they no longer match this criteria of not having a check-in tag on them. Okay. So all of those leads are going to go into your check-in filters. Now, your check-in filters really, it's all in the follow-up, right? So a lot of us are so anxious, and this goes for any industry, really. We're so anxious to get on the phone with a new potential connection, and then we all of a sudden just drop the ball at the follow-up. The follow-up is where you're going to see the rewards for all your efforts. It's never really, it does happen, but it's not often that the first call, you've got that person in the car, right? There's follow-ups involved in that. So your 1-week check-in. So your 1-week check-ins essentially pull up everyone in your list that have your check-in tag on them. And then they haven't been contacted by phone or SMS in the last 7 days. So here we can see there's one person in here. So this person hasn't had a call or a SMS sent to them in the last 7 days. So they're in this list. It's very similar to your number 2 filter. So as soon as I call this person or send them a text message, they're going to fall off of this list and automatically reappear in 7 days from now for you to try them again. Okay. Now, your 2 weeks check-ins, the same idea, except for it's 14 days. Okay, so you've got the 14-day check-in. Then you have your monthly check-ins. So your monthly check-ins, again, those are by phone only. So anything 1 month or up, we selected to have it as phone only, to connect with them. You guys, again, can definitely adjust it. So if you consider your check-ins phone or SMS, either way, you can definitely adapt that as well. Now, a scenario that you might encounter. So some individuals, they solely rely on the tags. Some individuals use the tags, but solely rely on their tasks. And some people rely on both of them, right? So they do both. Now, a scenario that might come across is essentially you have somebody that's on a monthly, quarterly, or 6-month check-in, let's say, that you just tried calling and they didn't answer. You may have left them a message, sent them a follow-up text, but you feel like, you know what, it's been 90 days since I actually spoke to this person. I really want to talk to them. So you can actually piggyback your tags. So if we go into, I believe it was this one here, you can have 2. So just to show you as an example, I'm just going to throw in, it won't fall into any of those because there was too many calls. But you can put 2 tags on a person. So let's say this person was in your quarterly check-ins, you just did a phone call, you left them a message. You can throw on the weekly check-in as well. This way, they keep populating into your weekly check-in list until you talk to them. And then from there, that's when you would remove the weekly check-in. But you also may need to move your quarterly check-in as well, because they might have moved up, right? So they now might qualify to be checked in on monthly at that point. So once you guys start using it, it can be definitely overwhelming. I 100% can understand that. A lot of the times it becomes putting it to action. Once you start putting it to action, a lot of things start making sense for you, nonetheless. If you don't want to use the weekly check-in tag on a quarterly, so you don't want to piggyback tags, you just want to have the initial tag and then maybe create a task. For those of you that may not know how to create a task, you're simply just going to click on their name and then you just create the task here, okay? So you have your title, the task due date, or the details, and then the due date there. So what you would essentially do then, let's say you had your quarterly check-in, you've called them off the list, they didn't answer, you now create the task for, let's say, 7 days for you to follow up with them again. You call them, they didn't answer. So now you can take the previous task that you might have had, so let's say this was the follow-up, whatever it might be, you can then push that task, right? So then you can just push it for 7 days and then save it. And so it'll push that task, it'll keep going. Now, tasks in general, while we're kind of talking about tasks, it's highly suggested that you only task your leads that you've communicated with. Everyone you haven't communicated with is generally going to be in one of your filters, any of those initial 1 or 2 filters. Okay, so using this, otherwise you just get over inundated with tasks, you start ignoring them, and then the important tasks slip through the cracks. So if you are creating tasks, one thing I highly suggest is going to your calendar, making it like the first thing in the morning. This is my daily habit. I check my calendar, see what I have to do. If any of you use Google, you can integrate this with your Google Calendar so that these tasks also become calendar events for you. And I might actually have it connected in here. We'll see if it actually logs me into mine. Yes, it did. So you can see here that these are tasks, right? So with the Google integration, when you test it, you'll be able to see the task title, your task, any of those notes that you left in there, and then a link right into that lead. So you're able to click on it and it opens up that lead right here for you to be able to call. So how you guys can essentially do that is in your user preferences and in your integrations tab. So right here, you just add your account. You're basically just going to log into Google, and then it sets those permissions. And then any tasks you guys create moving forward are automatically going to dump into that calendar for you, so you never miss a task, because you can action them right on the go. So those are your essential filters. So really, it's going to go down in sequence, really. So you're just 20 to 30 a day, clearing the list, connecting with these leads. You're trying to have a conversation with them, learn more so you can put them in the appropriate follow-up filter. And then you're checking your filters for your check-ins daily and making sure you're calling them. Now, your check-ins are just that. We're just reaching out to a lead, letting them know that we're here. If they need anything, making sure everything's okay. And depending on the lead, the more you do that, a lot of people will respect that. They see the effort, they can identify the effort that you're putting into things. Some people won't. I'm like 100% honest, they could care less. But some people, especially anyone that's, you know, in any kind of professional industry, they recognize your efforts when you are doing that. So again, you're just checking in. We're not trying to sell them anything. We're just making sure everything's good and that they don't need anything from you at that moment in time. So 1, 2, 3, and then your check-ins. Now, your number 4 is for those people that you may have called 8 or more times. Okay, so if you've called somebody 8 or more times and you still haven't connected with them, they're going to fall into this filter. So basically, the requirement is that you've called them at least 8 times. You haven't connected with them, potentially have a good phone number, and you're going to call them once a week, only if they've been looking at listings in the last 7 days or 30 days rather. So they're kind of at the bottom of your priority list at that point. And you can also, you know, flip this. So if you want to pull up everyone that's not active in the last 30 days, you just hit the apply, and those are even at the bottom of your priority list below this one here. So it's just kind of scooping everyone up. You also have the ability, you can do that with your number 3 as well, because this one is pointing out the people that are active. But if you find time, you can go is not active. It's then going to show you I've got 81 leads in here that have not been active in the last 30 days that I've made contact with, that I have not put a check-in tag on them. Okay. And I'm just going to loop back one more time. I'm not sure if y'all noticed, these filters do not have any indication of activity. Okay, because somebody that you have a 6-month check-in on, or quarterly, or even a monthly check-in, they're not necessarily going to be actively looking at listings all the time if it's reflective of their timeline, but you still want to be there checking in on them nonetheless, right? So those are those. Now, before I get going, because some of that can definitely be overwhelming, does anyone have any questions? You guys can use the chat, raise your hand, whatever it might be. It can definitely be a lot to take in. I 100% understand that. But as I said, as you guys start to utilize things, you'll start to recognize that it is a lot easier moving forward. Starts to make sense. Starts to make sense, really. If you're not comfortable, so a lot of you will have an assigned trainer. Reach out to them. You can have a scheduled session going over your system specifically. If you don't have a trainer, you don't know who it is, just send an email into support. They'll connect you with our department. We'll either connect you with your trainer for that session, or we will assign you to a new one if you don't have one. But it may give you a better understanding. So if you're just trying this out for the first time, and especially with the check-in filters, one thing that is strongly encouraged then is for the people that you are speaking to, is you want to leave your notes as if you're anticipating your colleague doing a follow-up for you, meaning we're not withholding the information that we think, keyword think, we're going to remember, because the chances of you actually remember it are highly low. And are highly unlikely. I don't know, highly low. I don't think that's actually a phrase, but it's highly unlikely. It's also going to make your follow-up that much more powerful. So if you're reaching out to someone and I was like, hey, Janet, yeah, it's Crystal. You know, last time we spoke, you were doing those basement renovations. How's that coming along? right? Or, I know last time you spoke, whatever, your daughter just broke her arm, broke her arm. How is she doing? Is it recovered now? People will be impressed that you remember those parts of the conversation, when in fact, you probably didn't remember that. It was that you left great notes for yourself, right? So it makes your leads feel like they actually matter, that they're actually a person to you, not just a number. Now, you can create your own save filters, okay? So one filter that you may want to create is the email only list. Okay, so the email only list, I'm just going to update this, is anyone that you have a bad phone number, but potentially have a good email, meaning you can't call them. They're not going to be in your call list because they have a bad number, but they have a good email. So these people here, you know that you can only resort to sending mass emails, things like that, communication through email communication, whether it's like one by one or what have you. So that's one list that you may want to do. And that one there is just phone validity and email validity. So phone validity is set to invalid. Email validity is set to unknown or valid. Okay. You can also include a do not call in there as well, if you really wanted to. So anyone that you potentially cannot call, but you can email. So that's one there. What I do encourage is you definitely going in and playing around with filters. So you have a magnitude of filters that you can choose from in here. It allows you to create very specific audiences for yourself. So one I noticed that some people, if they start using tags or what have you in the system, they're often creating tags based on the locations that their lead is looking in. You don't have to do that unless it's a community, because you have a filter to do buying city. So if you do buying city, and let's say I type Toronto and then just select that and apply it, it's now going to show me everyone in this list that their search, whatever listings they're receiving, is set up to receive some listings in Toronto. Okay, they could have other areas as well added to their search, but they at least have Toronto in there. Now you can even filter this down further. So let's say you're doing an open house and you have got a condo listed for sale. So now you want to filter out everyone in your database that's looking for a condo. Okay, or in Toronto looking for a condo. So then you can see that this list dropped to 21. Now you also can refine it even by price as well. So you can do a range, you can do equal to or greater than or equal to or less than. So if you're doing, let's just say my condo is listed at 900,000. So I want everyone that is looking, let's say, from the $1 million mark or less. Okay, so 1 million, is that enough zeros or less? So when I apply this filter, I've got 18 people in here that are under $1 million. So there's those ones there. Now this one here, you can see the maximum is over 1 million, but that's because there's still part of their search that's under the $1 million mark. Okay, so that's how you could essentially advertise for open houses, or when you gain a new listing, or whatever it might be. You got a coming soon that's going out, you can advertise it or blast it to your different audiences. So that's one there. But as you can see, there's a magnitude of filters. Go through your list and see what they are. Okay, so see what happens, kind of how they connect with your leads and how things change in your database, who's actually being presented in front of you. And because you can save these. So you can create very specific audiences for yourself. Okay, so let's say I just wanted to create this as an audience. It's very simple, but you can create it as an audience. You're going to give it a name. Okay, so you just give it a name. So it's going to go test filter. Now you have two options when it comes to saving this filter. You have the personal filter or the company filter. If you're seeing the personal filter only, that's likely because you are a sub-user in your system, meaning that you do not have admin rights. Okay. If you have admin rights or you're the primary account holder, you will see the ability to create company filters. So a company filter means that anyone in your organization, so if you have a bunch of fire agents with you or you plan on adding them, anyone within your organization would be able to utilize the company filters they show in the company filters section. Now, if you create a filter as a personal filter, it's personal to that specific user account, meaning that all the other members in your organization will not see that filter. It's just for you to see, and those will show up down below in your personal filters. Okay, so those are all there. But there's, again, just play around with it. There is some here. I don't even know which ones they are. There's a rule engagement, older leads, recently active. Okay, so this is where you can filter your leads based on when they registered. So if they registered more than 90 days ago, they've been active in the last 30 days, and we haven't contacted them in the last 30 days, that's what this list would be. So the older your leads are, and if they're active, they're golden. And they've been nurtured. They've been looking at listings for, in some cases, many, many years. So those are the leads that are actually more willing to talk to you and likely to be sooner to transact in many cases, because they've now had their time to essentially get all their pieces together, situate themselves, and now they're ready to seriously start making a move. But that's ultimately it for this session today as far as what we were going to cover. Does anyone have any questions that I could answer for you at all? Again, you can raise your hand if you want to talk or use the chat, whatever is best or easiest for you. See anything? So next session, next week, we are going to be talking all about the email templates, or templates in general. So email and SMS templates, as well as how you guys can add GIFs into your picture, into your email. So it looks like moving pictures, so similar to what BombBomb does. It can, whether you're using like a video or an image, it definitely will increase your click rate. And then on top of all of this, one thing that I will show you is this site right here. Some of you guys have maybe already seen this. But if you go to the course section, this right here there is a section that talks specifically about the filters, so kind of what we just went over today. So if you need a refresh on all of that, but this general thing is kind of geared towards lead conversion and some tips and tricks there. But it's also, so it's training.agentlocator.ca. It's where you're going to be able to look through different courses, register for upcoming webinars, register for live dialing, or watch any kind of on-demand webinars as well. So that will be going out to you there. So there's a lot of content in here nonetheless. And as I mentioned, if either anyone in here has needs help, doesn't have a trainer, or does have a trainer, doesn't remember who it is, either reach out to your trainer or reach out to support. We'll get you aligned with someone to get you an understanding your system. So we can help with the tagging as far as check-ins or situations and things like that. If you're not certain, we kind of show you how it all works, and you'll start to kind of piece it together a little bit more clear. And the only requirement is you have to leave those good notes, those good call notes. But that's about it. So I thank you all for coming on board today. I know it was short notice, so audience levels were quite low. They didn't really get the marketing out as fast as I would have anticipated or hoped they would have, but our marketing team is definitely very busy. So hopefully we'll have more on deck tomorrow, more people, and I want to thank you all for hopping in tonight. You all have yourselves a wonderful evening, and we will see you hopefully next week. Bye.